Hi, this is Professor Enriquez with a summary of Chapter 9, which is also over vitamins and minerals, but this time focuses on the vitamins and minerals needed to make healthy tissues. Specifically, we're going to mostly focus on bone and blood. So the vitamins and minerals that are important that are actually components of blood. We're actually going to talk a little bit about what's in blood, and then the vitamins and minerals that are needed to make it, and then also the same thing for bone tissue. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to talk about what's in blood. Blood is made of several different parts. It's got what's called plasma, which is basically mostly water. It contains salts, sugars, other dissolved things like hormones, albumin, all kinds of things. Antibodies are found in the plasma area of blood, clotting factors, all kinds of goodies. And that's the water part of blood. And the other parts of blood, the main other part of blood is red blood cells. As you can see, this diagram on the top shows if you take a sample of blood and you spin it in a centrifuge really quickly, the heaviest parts of the blood go to the very bottom, and that's the red blood cells. And those are needed in our blood to carry oxygen. Each red blood cell carries a molecule in it or a bunch of molecules in it called hemoglobin. And oxygen doesn't really dissolve in water. The other things that we need to transport in our blood, like sugar and amino acids, those dissolve in water. But oxygen does not, so that's why red blood cells are needed to carry oxygen. The other two kinds of cells you see are white blood cells, which fight infection, and platelets, which help clot blood. They're visible in this smear of blood. Most of the little round red things are red blood cells. The few little tiny specks are platelets. And the big cells with the funky nuclei are white blood cells. So this is important for understanding what we need to make blood, because basically the actual water itself is basically just water and salt, which is, we already covered, sodium and chloride. They're the number one electrolytes found in your extracellular fluids like your blood. But the red blood cells require a number of things in order to be created. So if you take hemoglobin, which, as I mentioned, is the protein that is stored in the red blood cells and traps oxygen. It has a pigment called a heme, and that heme pigment holds an atom of iron. And so you need to have iron in your diet. Now, you don't need a lot because our body is very careful about recovering iron after the red blood cells are broken down. But you have to have a certain amount of iron in your body, and we do lose tiny bits of iron. Very, very small amounts, and so you do need to have iron as part of your diet. That's why iron is the most essential mineral we think of for blood. There are two other minerals that are important for our blood. Zinc is important in enzymes. Actually, zinc is a cofactor in a lot of enzymes, including the enzymes that make the heme. So zinc is important for that. And then copper is important in transporting iron. People with a copper deficiency. Now, we don't need a lot of zinc or copper. If you're taking daily supplements of zinc and copper, you're probably wasting your money because you only need very small amounts of it. The only people who normally have problems getting enough of these are vegetarians, like especially strict vegans, who don't take in enough meat. The meat always has plenty of all these minerals, as more than what we need. But people who are strict vegans may sometimes have problems getting enough iron. In addition to these minerals, we need several vitamins in order to make hemoglobin. Notice that vitamin B6, folate, and vitamin B12 are all important for synthesizing hemoglobin. Those vitamins we already covered in the previous section because those basically work as enzyme cofactors, which we've already covered, help with the production of, help with the functioning of enzymes to make things, especially making hemoglobin, like putting the amino acids together and so forth. So those are the main vitamins and minerals that are particularly important for our blood. Another vitamin, which is very important for basically a lot of functions of our body, is vitamin C. And vitamin C is important especially because we need it to make collagen. Collagen is the most abundant protein in the body. It's in your skin, in your bones, teeth, tendons, ligaments, muscles, blood vessels. Basically, collagen is the number one toughening, strengthening protein. It's wrapped around all of your major organs. It's on your skin, bones, etc. It's everywhere. And in order to take collagen from these straight chains to make them extra strong, what happens is they have to be braided together. And that braiding process actually is accomplished with the assistance of vitamin C. And so people with a lack of vitamin C start to eventually have problems synthesizing these collagen braids, which you really need in order to make all your tissues really strong. And that's actually the deficiency of vitamin C is called scurvy. And so scurvy, one of the main first signs of scurvy is weakening of the gums because your gums are held together with collagen too. And so if your gums start to weaken, not have enough collagen produced in them, then you start to have problems with your teeth falling out and things like that. That's usually one of the main signs of scurvy. We cannot store vitamin C because it's water soluble. We can only store fat soluble vitamins, so that would be vitamins A, D, E. And vitamin K is fat soluble, but I don't believe we can store it. But vitamins A, D, and E we can store. Vitamin C you can't store. You only need a very small amount of it, though. And there is a practice sometimes when people get sick to take a megadose of vitamin C. It's not really shown to help very much necessarily. It does help a little bit with their recovery. But it also doesn't hurt because the toxicity level of vitamin C is outrageously high. You basically need to basically have like a solid brick of vitamin C and eat the whole thing to have any kind of toxicity problem. Vitamin C is really good for you, obviously, as I'm sure everyone knows. Everyone's been harassed by their parents to make sure they get enough vitamin C. And this is one of the main functions is helping. Now, it has a lot of other functions you might remember. It's also an antioxidant and so forth, but synthesizing collagen is one of its key functions. The components of bone are listed here. We can kind of see a diagram of bone tissue and then zoomed in. Bone tissue is a mixture of a liquid, which is like bone marrow, the stroma, and then a solid bone matrix. So the solid bone matrix is made primarily from two ingredients, collagen and crystals that are called hydroxyapatites. There's other things as well, but those are the two main ingredients. Hydroxyapatites are mineral deposits. They're calcium, phosphate, and some other things as well, including a little bit of magnesium. The collagen obviously is produced, again, with the help of vitamin C by cells that are called osteoblasts. The osteoblasts produce the hydroxyapatites and the collagen. That's why you can see them in the diagram on the lower one. That the osteoclasts will come and tear down bone tissue that is weak, that is old, that's got exposed fibers and problems. And so the osteoblasts then have the function to rebuild these bone matrix. So this is constantly happening at all times. All your old bone is constantly being broken down by osteoclasts and then rebuilt by osteoblasts. That's a normal cyclical process that's happening. And so one of the key factors that is helping to keep this in balance is how much calcium is available to build new bone matrix. So obviously if your osteoclasts tear down a certain amount, a gram of bone matrix, then a gram's worth of calcium phosphate crystals, not 1 gram, but the amount of calcium that would be in 1 gram of bone goes into your blood. So then osteoblasts will absorb that calcium and use it to build new bone. But calcium is used for other things as well, and so you could possibly lose calcium, so it's important to make sure you're getting calcium in your diet. Calcium and phosphate are the two main minerals that are important for producing new bone tissue. Magnesium is another mineral, fluoride is another mineral. Those are also important, they're very helpful for building your bone matrix. There's 2 vitamins that are also important with this. Vitamin D is exceptionally important. But vitamin D is not stored in bone. Bone doesn't actually have anything to do with storing vitamins. That's a common misconception. The actual thing that vitamin D is good for is that it's for absorbing calcium for the digestive tract. So let's say you drink a glass of milk and you think, okay, I got my calcium for the day. But if you're vitamin D deficient, you won't absorb any of that calcium because vitamin D is necessary in order to absorb the calcium. So that's why part of why they fortify usually milk with vitamin D. Vitamin D fortified milk. Vitamin D is, as you can see in this diagram here, how it's actually produced, among other things, from sunlight. Sun striking your skin actually helps convert one of the kinds of cholecalciferol to urocalciferol, I believe it is. Actually, I forgot to double check that. If I'm wrong, I apologize. Make sure you go off what's in your book. But basically, the upshot is that vitamin D can be produced in part by having cholesterol in your skin and having this sunlight turn that into real vitamin D. And then vitamin D is important for absorbing calcium. Vitamin K is also important, especially for blood clotting, which is, I guess I should have covered in the previous section. But vitamin K can also be important potentially for bone density. It's not clear exactly how that would work, so we're not going to spend too much time on that. But these are the main minerals and vitamins that we need in order to have healthy bones. So as you can see, magnesium and fluoride, you only need in trace amounts, but it doesn't hurt to get them. And then you're going to make sure you need enough calcium, phosphate, and then vitamin D to absorb the calcium. All right, so that's it for Chapter 9. Thanks for watching, and I hope that makes sense. And tune in next week when we're going to cover Chapter 10, which we're going to be starting the last section of the class, which is more of diet, more of exercise and body weight management and so forth. Thanks.